You ever feel like some people just carry something heavy, even when they look fine on the outside? Like there's a story behind their eyes they never talk about. Maybe you know someone like that, or maybe it's you. The truth is, pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it hides. It becomes silence, stiffness, or even overthinking. And those who've been through too much, they don't just act differently. They are different, not because they want to be, but because life shaped them that way. In this video, we're going to break down 13 hidden traits of people who've suffered deeply. These aren't flaws, they're survival skills. But here's the thing, what helped them get through the hard times can also hold them back now. You'll see how pain shows up in ways no one expects, how it changes the way someone loves, trusts, or even talks to themselves. And if you've ever felt like you don't fit in, like your reactions are too much or not enough, this might explain why. Because understanding these traits isn't just about seeing others clearly, it's about seeing yourself. By the end, you'll know how to turn this silent pain into awareness, choice, and even healing. So stick with me. This isn't just another video, it's a chance to connect the dots, to understand why you or someone you love behaves the way they do. Ready? Let's start. Pain alters individuals. It doesn't just pain, it reshapes. Some folks learn to appear good even when they are not. They get through the day, they show up, they smile. But behind that quiet front, often there is a storm, or perhaps not a storm, just a peaceful burden they have come to bear alone. Hyper-independence is the first quality. Let us discuss it. You know those folks who appear to have everything in order? Who, no matter what, never seek assistance? They seem to be self-sufficient. Good, no? But the reality is that it is not strength. It's a vintage scar. For some, relying on others was not safe. Requesting assistance brought letdowns, shame, or worse, abandonment. That meant they quit inquiring. They turned into everything for themselves. From the outside, it seems remarkable. From within, it's lead weighty. These individuals experience great suffering, yet hesitate to display it. They don't seek comfort since they either don't know how or feel shame. At some point, trust became too dangerous. This inflexibility extends to friendships, relationships, jobs. All becomes performance. All becomes self-control, but it costs. The chest becomes more constricted. Touch seems dangerous. Rest seems like frailty. Though surrounded by others, they feel alone within. Hyper-independence is a jail with an internal lock, not freedom. Living with it makes people not want to be a burden. They only want to guarantee that they will never again be left hanging. But deep down, it's only another approach to remain quietly hurt. Consider someone who insists on handling all tasks alone. Perhaps they were raised in a house where requesting assistance was viewed as weakness, or much worse, where their demands were unmet. With time, they came to depend just on themselves. Years later, they cannot let anyone in, not because they don't want to, but rather because they lack knowledge on how. This is not about being too strong. Survival is what counts. Though it may have worked for some time, it has a cost. No one should have to manage everything all the time. So no one should have to manage everything all the time. So you might know someone like this, or perhaps it is you. They look strong, yet something seems wrong. What if their might is not actually strength at all? What if it's only a means of excluding others? Continue to watch. Understanding this quality could help you to see them and yourself differently. Too much compassion is the second quality. At first look, it appears to be a blessing. These folks experience everything for everyone. However, when empathy becomes a survival tool, it ceases to be merely a trait and becomes a coping method. Some children even learned to survey the room as though seeking shelter. They sensed impending disaster. They noticed silences, looks, and tone of speech. Though today it is tiring, this acute awareness enabled them survival. Fear drives this over empathy. Fear of being the focus of wrath. Fear of uncertainty. Jung termed it projection, putting onto others what we haven't confronted in ourselves. These folks haven't loved themselves, so they love so much for others. Imagine someone who always knows when a friend is unhappy, even before the friend speaks. They notice little signals, a forced grin, a conversational halt. They hurry to correct problems and improve the other person's mood. But in doing so, they neglect their own requirements. While it could appear admirable, excessive empathy can also be a kind of retreat, a means of evading one's own suffering. Worse still, This sort of compassion could cause uneven partnerships, ones in which one takes and the other simply gives, where hearing the other becomes a justification to never hear oneself. That sensitivity gradually becomes overload. Those that possess this quality can feel invisible when not in use. That's the most obvious indication that in this situation, empathy ceased to be love and turned into a defensive mechanism. Before we go on, I would like to suggest another video, Finding Your True Self with Carl Jung's Wisdom. This movie can help you if you are attempting to grasp why you respond the way you do, or why others act the same. Jung's revelations penetrate the subconscious, revealing how our history forms us without our knowledge. Watching this can provide you tools to find buried areas of yourself and begin mending previous injuries. Look at it later. The third quality is dread of genuine relationships. Intimacy triggers alarms. It's not drama. It's the unconscious seeing patterns that caused profound scars. In relationships, this manifests as overreactions, envy, abrupt retreat. What lies behind it? An inner child who recalls the agony of trusting just to be abandoned. From the outside, these folks could appear self-sufficient, even confident. They say, "I don't need anyone." But inside, a buried great yearning remains. Every time someone gets near, anxiety manifests as irritation, control, or quiet. Genuine connections call for total presence. But for someone who has experienced it, being completely present seems too open. Love becomes a battlefield rather than a resting spot. Loving someone like this will require patience. Should you identify with this, you will require bravery not to plunge in headfirst, but rather to understand the now does not have to repeat the past. Love doesn't all cause pain. At times, it's simply someone attempting to remain. What if love instead of a refuge feels like a threat? When love seems more of a danger than a sanctuary, what results? Why do some people drive others away even when they desire relationship? Stay put. We're about to look at the wounds that cause closeness to seem risky and how to treat them. The fourth quality is the persona of a strong individual who crumbles alone. This is the social mask Jung mentioned. When suffering is too great, the mask becomes permanent rather than a decision. These folks seem solid, controlled, and balanced. But underneath it all lies fatigue no one observes. Exhibiting weariness seems like vulnerability, revealing suffering, not even a choice. Often, what seems like stability is containment. What seems like self-control is dread of disintegrating in front of someone. The breakdown arrives alone, in the shower, on the pillow, on the road home. Nobody observes, nobody has any idea. Real strength is not about never falling. It's about having faith in someone to declare, "Today is difficult." Sensory sensitivity is the fifth quality. Loud noises seem too much. Bright lights annoy. Crowded areas exhaust. It's not being dramatic. The nervous system has adapted to exist on constant alert. There is a narrative behind this hyper-awareness. A childhood where danger came unannounced. A trauma that made the planet a danger. A body that, for a long period, could not rest. Jung claimed that whatever doesn't come to awareness comes back as fate. With past pain, it returns as physical sensations. The body expresses what the soul has not yet verbalized. These individuals see what others overlook. A background noise that seems harsh, a smell no one else detected, and a half-second too long glare that seems judgmental. It's like living with all the sensors always on, even when there is no actual risk. It's tiring and often perplexing as the individuals around don't get why that location seemed wrong, why that party was excessive, or why that discussion left them exhausted. For these people, everything is stimulus. Everything strikes with maximum volume. When properly understood, this sensitivity can be a blessing since many are intuitive, sensitive, and highly alert. But when based in trauma, it becomes a weight. The body reacts to dangers the conscious mind has forgotten, but the soul still remembers, making it a quiet battlefield. Healing starts when we realize how suffering affects the body. Discomfort is memory, not weakness. An overblown response to stimuli could simply be an ancient scream begging to be heard. Some pains are deliberate. Sometimes it's the body saying, "It was too much for me once, and I'm just trying to protect you." Consider someone who reacts to loud sounds. Perhaps they were raised in a house where yelling signaled impending harm. Years later, their body responds before their brains can understand why. Or someone who is uncomfortable in busy areas. They may have picked up early on that being in a crowd meant losing control or feeling confined. These responses are not shortcomings. They are survival skills that outlasted their goal. Knowing this enables us to view these qualities as signals rather than flaws. Signals indicating something here needs attention. Listening to those signs initiates healing, and when we pay attention to those signals, healing begins. Have you ever had the impression that your body responds to things others overlook? What if those feelings are connected to something more profound? Something you have not yet completely dealt with? Continue to watch. We're going to look at how this sensitivity affects self-worth, choices, and relationships. The sixth quality is the compulsive desire for control. It's not because the individual is pushy, strict, or typically domineering. It's because at some point in their life, pandemonium was too much. They discovered that without total control, everything disintegrates. Control is a means of breathing. It's not about power. It's about planning every step, expecting every result, and triple-checking everything. It's about anxiety, fear of being taken off guard once more, fear of revisiting something that already set you back too much. From the outside, it appears to be efficiency, organization, responsibility, but within, it's always stress. The mind is continuously racing even when all is well. Jung stated, the ego tries to control exactly what the unconscious doesn't want to face. Here, control acts as a barrier against uncertainty. Those trapped in this mindset find it difficult to unwind. They despise assigning tasks. They struggle to accept the unanticipated, since surprises are emotional dangers, not only inconvenience. Picture someone who schedules every aspect of their day. They spiral if anything goes wrong. A friend cancels last minute, a meeting runs late. They are not perfectionists. It's because anarchy had formerly rendered them impotent, and they vowed it would never occur again. This fixation on control is not strength. It's the sign of a soul that previously battled anguish and is now attempting to compensate. Life can only be lived, not controlled. Healing is the result of understanding gradually that one may live without fear of total collapse. The seventh quality is quietude as a sanctuary. It's a need for space, quiet, and time to hear your own breath without being overrun by expectations, not solitude out of contempt. Silence is a safe haven, a cocoon where the spirit attempts to reorder itself. For those who have survived internal storms, quiet is not empty, but rather healing. Jung saw withdrawal as symbolic. He viewed withdrawal as a mental process of death and resurrection. The soul retreats when everything seems too much, like someone protecting a wound from touch, not out of callousness, but for survival. Silence is not only the lack of noise, it's the lack of demands, judgments, masks. It's a room where nothing has to be explained, where suffering can just be there, without an audience, without urgency to heal fast. But with time, a wall could result from quiet that began as healing. Once a halt, now a trend. The danger is that stillness becomes to signify isolation, and isolation, memory loss. This quality therefore calls for attention. Not everyone who goes silent is fine. At times, they are simply too exhausted to continue attempting to fit into a society that never stops chattering. Consider someone avoiding discussions and spending hours alone in their room. To others, it could look as though they are excluding others, but internally, they are seeking equilibrium. They are not turning down connection. Rather, they are safeguarding themselves till they believe prepared to share once more. The secret is letting that silence without guilt, but yet knowing when to open the door slightly to let someone in, someone who will remain, who will listen. Silence can be home, but it also needs a door. The eighth quality is a too protective heart. It's not shut out of hatred, pride, or apathy. Rather, the last time it was open, it caused pain, profoundly. The ego learns to defend itself. It creates undetectable filters. It assesses all before it believes. It questions first, then it gives up. It looks into gestures, voice tone, and even the time gap between one message and the next. Love comes, but is subjected to a harsh screening before being welcomed. It's tiring for the one who feels, and for the one attempting to love them, as love never comes easily. There's always tension, concealed weight, a never-ending inquiry. Can I really trust this? the soul lives like a person sleeping with one eye open. Jung discussed the distinction between living from trust and living from fear. And here, the focus was dread. The individual views everything via the recollection of suffering. Even when all is okay, something inside tells me to be ready. This might alter. The unconscious seems to ignore the passage of time. It still responds as though the danger were present, even when it is not. Consider someone who thinks twice before sharing. They may feel strongly, but keep back. They watch. Before believing, they examine every aspect. Though they begin to trust, they always retain some secret portion of themselves, a section untouched by anyone, a component that constantly questions. It's as though something inside always says, "Careful, this might hurt once again," and it really might. For someone who was shattered just where they most required safety, opening out ceased to be easy. The memory of desertion shouts louder than the actuality of love. Love appears, but so does fear. What if loving someone is more difficult because of their walls than because of their flaws? What if their walls, not their faults, are the most difficult aspect of loving someone? What if their stillness conceals a heart, afraid to hope once more? Stay put. We're exploring ever more why certain individuals so strongly protect their hearts and how to get to them. The eighth quality is a strengthened sense of justice. It does not originate from speeches or literature. It arises from first-hand experience with injustice, treachery, being silenced, or the helplessness of being terribly wounded and no one intervening to defend you. A soul crushed by injustice will not put up with it anymore. He will learn to smell it from far away. The tiniest hint of disrespect triggers an ancient alert. The reaction is strong, even when all seems well. It is defensive, but also memory-related. Jung knew that emotional complexes start off when the present touches the same wound the past caused. This feeling of justice is one of those scars, a quality of someone who has the scar of being silenced and now fights to remain silent. At times, those nearby do not understand. They consider it dramatic, hasty, and exaggerated, but it isn't. It's the mind saying, "Not this time. This time, I will not consume it." Often, this ethical awareness appears early. Children who witnessed bad acts and were powerless to act. Teenagers who fought against ridiculous laws. Adults who fight for causes with the fervor of someone seeking to save their inner child. The archetype triggered here is the moral warrior, the one who battles for coherence, respect, integrity, not for perfection, but for dignity. When balanced, this struggle is admirable. But when guided simply by suffering, it might become intolerance or rigidity. The difficulty is maintaining that feeling of justice without allowing it to become armor versus the world. To wield the sword, but also understand when to lower it, when to listen, when to embrace. Because those who have suffered injustice know precisely how it cuts. And for that exact reason, they have the uncommon opportunity to improve, to be the sort of presence that guards without punishing. The 11th quality is the capacity to perceive the unseen in others. Those who have suffered too much acquire a radar for the suffering of others, even when it is masked as silence. Some eyes strike through, not for what they say, but for what they quietly see. Those who recognize when someone is not all right, even if they grin, who sense what has not been spoken, who knows what nobody ever revealed, and who hold space without too many inquiries. This is not magic, it's recollection, memory of having lived in the very skin, what now can only be seen in little indications. No one teaches this sort of awareness. It is born, or more accurately, it is woken following a fall. Those who have wept silently understand how to hear silence. Those who felt lonely in a throng come to identify when others are in that same location. It's nearly second nature. Jung claimed that integrating our own suffering helps us to see more group suffering. That's precisely what this quality is, a sort of emotional radar that appears when required without trying to be seen. Sometimes it really matters. Though it may appear mild, this sensitivity is significant, as witnessing what no one else sees is also a duty. Those who care too much about others sometimes neglect themselves. They take in, they do, they participate, and vanish. Finding the right balance is essential. To observe others without sacrificing your own identity, to be there without vanishing, to share with someone but not bear all alone. This capacity to see the unseen is a gift, yet it serves as a reminder. When handled consciously, pain transforms into a tool, a presence, a touch that supports rather than invades. Even while the world keeps racing, folks with this quality understand the truth is in the details, in how someone sits, in the pause between words, in a "I'm fine" that doesn't quite persuade. Only someone who has experienced actual suffering understands what that really means. Ever encountered someone who seemed to read your mind, or at least your unspoken suffering? Have you ever encountered someone who seemed to read your mind, or at least your unsaid suffering? What if their personal wounds influence their capacity to discern the unseen? Continue to observe. We'll look at the causes of this and its effects on people's relationships and self-esteem. The 11th quality is the intense dread of being a burden. It's a persistent, calm feeling of almost silent shame for being alive with all your demands, pains, wants. People who bear this dread seldom discuss it, but it shows in every effort to fit, to shrink, every "I'm okay" spoken only to avoid causing concern, every time they swallow their tears so no one believes they are weak, usually starting early. This quality develops when emotional suffering was overlooked or transformed into a concern for others. Children who heard "stop crying" or "don't be dramatic" or were just treated like they didn't matter grow up thinking that feeling is a burden and that they themselves are a bother. The adult who emerges from that is nice, helpful, responsible, but always terrified of becoming too much. Their requests for assistance make them feel guilty. They regret using space in times of weakness. They live attempting to compensate for the basic reality of their existence. Jung referred to this unconscious shame as something produced from a pain so deep that the ego distorts itself around it. In this situation, the injury claims, "You only have value if you don't interfere." The individual learns to excuse themselves all the time, to reduce their own suffering, to downplay every need. At times, even the love they get turns uncomfortable, as though they are replacing someone more deserved. But living like this is like walking terrified to leave traces, living as though you need permission merely to breathe. The reality is that no one should feel bad for wanting. To need is human. To be fatigued is human. Being vulnerable is human as well. Understanding that fear is already included in the healing process. Understanding that claiming space is a right, not a crime, changes everything. It becomes lighter. The spirit is a little bit taller. Life ceases to be a never-ending struggle to avoid bothering others. The 12th quality is the capacity to value the small things. It's not romanticizing suffering. Rather, it's what suffering leaves behind. When anarchy reigns and everything seems to be falling apart, the basic things take on fresh significance. The little no longer seems little. It turns into a sign of vitality, tranquility, and presence. Those who have been broken learn to see beauty when others merely pass by. The spirit grows a sort of calm thankfulness, not for the suffering itself, but for what followed, for the break, for unanticipated love, for the stability that had seemed unattainable. Jung discussed the concept of the wise one, a person who, following confronting the shadow, comes back with a fresh perspective on the world, more modest, more watchful, more there. That is what occurs here. The individual doesn't require much to experience. When they do feel, they feel it completely. This sensitivity manifests in the small details. It's the one who grins at the sky's hue shift, who really appreciates you for coffee brewed at just the appropriate time, who weeps at a song because it touched a location they didn't know still pained. At times, this is misinterpreted as fragility, but it is the reverse. It's depth, it is emotional development, it's having endured turmoil and still clinging to softness. The ability to enjoy the little things is a trait of someone who knows what it's like to lose everything and now sees the value in things before they're gone. It is a more complete presence, a quiet that understands how to listen, a glance that expresses gratitude even before inquiring. Consider someone who values the late afternoon light streaming through the window or the warmth of a hot coffee in their hands. Though to others, these may seem commonplace, to them, they are holy, because they are the things that tell them they are alive. They have learned to seek safety in the unnoticed aspects. What if for someone the tiniest things, a calm sunset, a warm cup of coffee, hold the greatest significance? What if for someone the tiniest things, a warm cup of coffee, a calm sunset, hold the greatest significance? What if their awareness of life's fragility fuels their gratitude for these times? Stay put. We'll look at how some individuals find beauty where others do not, and why it affects their perspective of the world. The 13th quality is the desire for meaning following the suffering. Living is insufficient. The spirit wishes to know why. It wants to convert suffering into direction, to rationalize what formerly seemed like total destruction. Many people find themselves looking for something greater than themselves after enduring truly difficult events, a cause to carry on, a means of guaranteeing it wasn't all for naught. That cause is never great, yet it is profoundly real. It could be assisting someone else going through the same situation. It may be producing something fresh, writing, loving, teaching, healing. It could just be being there for someone the way no one was for them. But there has to be a why. Pain wishes to turn into a root. Jung viewed this as the start of individuation, when a person starts transforming their own narrative into awareness, goal, gift, rather than being imprisoned by it. This quality reveals in how the individual starts to appear in the world, more linked to reality, less worried about appearance. Knowing life is brief, they understand that remaining here has a price. That is why they let it matter. They lend significance even to what formerly seemed intolerable. And certainly, that doesn't imply the suffering is gone. It's still there, as memory, as scar, but it no more rules. It now indicates, it reveals the path. Those who sense this begin to look back and see that even broken they persisted. Though hurt, they still cared. They transformed pain into presence and presence into goal, even without knowing how. It's not about looking strong or being a role model. It's about slowly starting to live with purpose instead of just existing. This desire for meaning is not evasion, it is development. It's the soul's birth of something fresh, something that declares, I went through it, but that's not all I exist. From that point, life starts to blossom in a completely different manner. Before we go on, allow me to suggest another video, Finding Your True Self with Carl Jung's Wisdom. This video will help you if you have ever questioned why you respond the way you do, or why others act the same. Jung's revelations penetrate the subconscious, revealing how our history forms us without our knowledge. Watching this can provide you tools to find buried areas of yourself and begin mending previous injuries. Look at it following this. Now, let's discuss their relationship. Everyone is a piece of the puzzle, a reflection of what you did to remain on your feet, of how you discovered a means to continue even when every part of you wanted to stop. Some of these qualities turned into shields, some turned into compasses, some became burden, some into presence, but all of them, without exception, were born as an effort to defend something valuable in you. Carl Jung once remarked, "The tree that reaches to heaven must have roots that reach down to hell." And that is just it. Everything you have become has everything to do with what you have suffered. Having these scars is not incorrect. You are living. Being alive after all you've experienced is already a strength the world seldom sees, but one that exists, throbs, and merits acknowledgement. This is not about claiming total recovery. Not that everything will suddenly fall into place immediately, but perhaps for the first time, you can view with a bit more compassion those aspects of yourself you have come to despise, since they were also attempting to protect you. You no longer have to conceal anything or remain constantly on guard. The suffering that formed you no longer has to guide the path. It may now silently walk with you. You will see that what earlier seemed like weakness was only a method to not give up as you continue forward, with more knowledge, with more freedom. You persisted. That speaks volumes. What if the qualities you have held as burdens may turn into stepping stones? What if your scars are evidence you survived rather than indicators of failure? Continue to watch. Understanding this could alter your perspective on yourself and your future. Subscribe to the channel here if this video resonated with you in any manner. If you identified with any of these qualities or considered someone who bears these characteristics. Always with respect, simplicity, and sincerity. we continue to investigate these profound roots of the psyche, suffering, and healing. Should you arrive here to the very end, leave this straightforward yet significant comment: "My pain taught me too." That way, I'll know you stayed with me to the end, and perhaps someone else will see that statement and feel a little less alone. You no longer have to conceal your suffering or reduce yourself to fit into areas where you are not really recognized. Our survival has a peculiar power, a form of raw knowledge created in the backdrop of the soul, without applause or witnesses. Every quality we have discussed is a reflection of that, of what you did to remain on your feet, of how you managed to carry on even when every part of you wanted to stop. Consider hyper-independence, for instance. Though it may seem like strength, it is usually rooted in fear. Fear of disappointment, fear of rejection. Still, it shows you knew how to support yourself when no one else could. Or too much empathy. It could exhaust you, but it also shows you really care, that your heart won't turn away from other people's suffering. The dread of being a burden reveals even something profound. It indicates you value connection so highly that you would shrink yourself to safeguard it, even though neglect or dismissal has caused you suffering. These qualities are not shortcomings, they are survival techniques. Though they could have benefited you once, it's acceptable to outgrow them today. Jung stated, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Knowing these qualities is about illuminating what has been concealed. It's about seeing clearly, not to judge, but to heal. Understanding why you act helps you to begin selecting differently. The suffering that formed you no longer has to govern you. As a teacher, not as a dictator, it can walk with you in silence. You no longer have to conceal anything or remain on watch constantly. You don't have to let the weight destroy you. It might lead you in place, it can lead you instead. What if your most difficult areas are also your strongest? What if your scars speak of tenacity rather than failure? Stay close with a few last reflections on how to carry your suffering, not as a weight, but as a bridge to something fresh. We are almost finished. Healing is not about forgetting the past. It's about including it. It's about allowing the lessons to sink in without letting the injuries control you. You are not your suffering, but you also don't have to conceal it. Owning your narrative gives you strength. Understanding these qualities helps you to start to view yourself differently. You stop criticizing yourself for the methods you have coped and start appreciating yourself for surviving. You understand that what earlier seemed like weakness was only a means to keep going, and that is cause for celebration, not because it's simple, but rather because it's genuine. Since you are still present, being here after all you've experienced is already a triumph. So, pause today to recognize yourself, to celebrate the aspects of you that persisted despite seeming unattainable. Tell yourself, "I am more than my suffering. I am more powerful than I believe. I merit to recover too." Healing is required, not selfish. It begins with kindness. Looking at yourself the way you'd look at someone you love, with compassion, patience, and understanding, helps one to start. You don't have to solve every problem immediately. Simply move forward, then the next one. Little by little, you will discover your path. Should this video speak to you, please consider subscribing to become part of our community. With honesty and compassion, we are here to investigate the deeper aspects of life, pain, healing, and development. Leave a comment underneath saying, "My pain taught me too." It's a little approach to interact and inform others they are not alone. And if you appreciated this, pass this video along to someone who could benefit from it. Healing begins with connection. It does not occur in solitude. Let's build an environment where we may develop together and teach one another. Finally, have a look at the suggested video, Finding Your True Self with Carl Jung's Wisdom. It's a great tool for knowing your inner world and finding undiscovered abilities. You merit to be supported, heard, and seen. So hang around. You fit here. Take care. I'll see you in the following one.